What would you risk to make history? On frozen lakes, open deserts, and high above the earth, these record breakers pushed past fear-chasing immortality. But in seconds, everything went wrong. They took the risk, and all of them met a tragic end. And one haunting question: how far is too far when greatness is on the line? Number 1. Donald Campbell. On January 4, 1967, the icy waters of Coniston Lake looked calm, almost inviting. But Donald Campbell was not there for beauty. He was there for history. At 45 years old, the British speed legend had already broken the world water speed record 7 times. That morning, he wanted one more. One number haunted him: 300 miles per hour. No one had ever officially crossed it on water and survived to celebrate. Behind him waited Bluebird K-7, a jet-powered hydroplane built like a missile. With 3,500 pounds of thrust, it was capable of unimaginable speed. Campbell launched at 8:45 a.m., slicing across the lake in a roaring blur. His first run averaged 297 miles per hour. Close. Too close to stop now. Without refueling, without hesitation, he turned for the return run. As Bluebird accelerated, the water grew rougher. Over the radio, Campbell's calm voice crackled. Full power. Moments later, he said he could barely see. Then came the chilling words: I am upside down. At over 300 miles per hour, the nose lifted. The boat flipped high into the air and crashed nose first into the lake. In seconds, it was over. Rescuers found debris, but Campbell was gone. He had pushed past the limit he always feared. Decades later, Bluebird was recovered, but the legend of Donald Campbell remained frozen in that moment. He chased greatness to the very edge, and on that cold morning, he paid the ultimate price. Number 2. Sailendra Nath Roy. On April 28, 2013, hundreds of spectators gathered near the Teesta River in India, their eyes fixed on a single cable stretched high above the rushing water. At the center of it all stood Sailendra Nath Roy, a 49-year-old police driver known for turning the impossible into spectacle. He had already pulled a train with his hair. He had already traveled across zip lines using nothing but a ponytail and sheer determination. That day, he wanted to go even farther. Another record, another headline, another moment that would prompt limits were meant to be challenged. Roy carefully tied his shoulder-length hair to a pulley system attached to the zip line. He wore a life jacket and carried the Indian flag, smiling confidently at the crowd. For him, this was not reckless. It was passion. It was pride. As he pushed off, the crowd erupted in cheers. Suspended high above the river, he began gliding forward, supported only by the strength of his hair and his willpower. For a moment, it looked like history was unfolding once again. Then something changed. Midway across the river, his hair became tangled in the wheel mechanism. His forward motion stopped. At first, spectators thought it was part of the act. Roy tried to free himself, reaching upward, attempting to untwist the strands. Minutes passed. The cheers faded into uneasy silence. Hanging there high above the water, the strain on his body grew heavier with every second. What was meant to be a triumphant crossing slowly turned into a desperate struggle. Rescue efforts began, but valuable time slipped away. After a prolonged suspension in mid-air, Roy was finally brought down and rushed for medical attention. He did not survive the ordeal. The event shocked those who had admired his courage and determination. Questions followed about safety planning and emergency preparation. Yet beyond the headlines, what remained was the image of a man who believed deeply in pushing boundaries. Sailendra Nath Roy chased greatness in his own extraordinary way. But on that day above the Teesta River, ambition met reality and the cost was heartbreakingly high. Number 3. Jessi Combs. The desert was silent, but the machine behind her was anything but. On August 27, 2019, Jessi Combs sat inside a jet-powered vehicle in Oregon's Alvord Desert, staring down a stretch of earth that seemed to go on forever. This was not just another race. This was her moment. Known as the fastest woman on four wheels, Jessi had spent years preparing for this single attempt. She was ready to push beyond limits once again. Jessi was more than a driver. She was an engineer, a builder, and a television personality who had earned respect in a world few women entered. Working with the North American Eagle team, she helped transform a retired fighter jet into a land-speed machine capable of extraordinary velocity. Her goal was clear: break the long-standing women's land speed record and claim her place in history. She had come heartbreakingly close before, but technical issues had denied her official recognition. This time she wanted it to count. As the jet car roared across the desert floor, it reached speeds beyond 500 miles per hour. The ground trembled. The horizon blurred. Inside the cockpit, Jessi stayed calm, focused on every movement. But as the vehicle began to slow, a mechanical failure disrupted the run. In seconds, the attempt ended in a catastrophic accident. Emergency responders arrived quickly, yet Jessi Combs lost her life that day. Her passing sent shockwaves across the racing world. Tributes flooded social media, honoring her fearless spirit and relentless drive. Later, her record-breaking speed was officially recognized, securing her place in history. But Jessi's true legacy is not just about numbers. It is about courage, about daring to dream in a space where few expected her to succeed. She chased greatness without hesitation, and even in tragedy, her story continues to inspire those who refuse to stay grounded. Number 4. Jessica Dubroff. She was only 7 years old, sitting on a booster seat, with her hands on the controls, smiling for cameras that called her a future legend. On April 11, 1996, Jessica Dubroff was attempting to become the youngest person to fly across the United States. The journey was called Sea to Shining Sea, a coast-to-coast adventure filled with interviews, media stops, and national attention. To many, it looked like an inspiring story of a young girl chasing the skies. But behind the headlines, the pressure was mounting. Jessica was flying in a Cessna 177B alongside her father, Lloyd Dubroff, and flight instructor Joe Reed. Although she had received flight lessons, she was not the one truly in command. The trip was tightly scheduled, packed with appearances and long flight hours. Fatigue began to build. The aircraft was heavy with fuel and equipment. And on the morning of departure from Cheyenne, Wyoming, the weather began to shift. Dark clouds gathered. Winds picked up. Rain and hail moved into the area. Still, the decision was made to continue. Witnesses later said the plane struggled to gain altitude after takeoff. It climbed only a few hundred feet before beginning an unstable turn. Moments later, the aircraft descended rapidly and impacted a residential street not far from the runway. The accident claimed the lives of all three on board. What had begun as a hopeful journey ended in heartbreak within seconds. The tragedy sparked national debate. Many questioned the role of media pressure and the risks of promoting record attempts involving children. In response, new legislation was passed to prevent similar situations in the future. Jessica's story remains one of ambition, innocence, and the unintended consequences of chasing history too soon. She dreamed of touching the sky, and though her flight was brief, her story forever changed the conversation about safety in the pursuit of records. Number 5. Diana Paris. At 18,000 feet above the Arizona desert, the sky was filled with color. 222 skydivers from around the world had gathered on April 3, 2014, united by one goal: break a world record for the largest sequential freefall formation. It was the kind of challenge that demanded absolute precision, trust, and years of preparation. Among them was Diana Paris, a 46-year-old skydiver from Germany, with more than 1,500 jumps to her name. She was experienced, respected, and deeply passionate about the sport she loved. As the planes climbed higher, oxygen masks on, and adrenaline building the atmosphere was electric. One by one, the skydivers exited into open air, accelerating past 100 miles per hour. The first formation came together beautifully, a massive human pattern suspended against the blue. Then they separated, preparing to form the second sequence. It was a breathtaking display of coordination at extreme altitude. But during descent, Diana encountered a critical equipment malfunction. In skydiving, timing is everything. There is only a narrow window to respond when something goes wrong. She initiated emergency procedures, but the altitude dropped too quickly. Despite her experience and training, the margin for recovery closed. Diana Paris lost her life that day. The loss stunned the international skydiving community. Teammates embraced on the ground, many in tears, struggling to process what had happened. After deep reflection, the group chose to continue the attempt in her honor, leaving one position open in the formation as a tribute. They completed the record with a symbolic, empty space, a powerful reminder of the friend they had lost. Diana's story reflects both the beauty and the risk of chasing greatness in the skies. Even for the most skilled, the pursuit of extraordinary achievements carries a weight that can change everything in an instant. Number 6. Lowell Bayles. In the golden age of air racing, when speed meant glory and the sky was the ultimate proving ground, Lowell Bayles was one of its brightest stars. Born in 1900 in Mason, Illinois, Bayles was fascinated by engines from a young age. Though he once studied mining engineering, his true calling began the moment he took his first flying lesson. The thrill of leaving the ground behind changed his life forever. By the early 1930s, Bayles had joined forces with the Granville brothers, creators of the bold and powerful GB Model Z. The aircraft was small, aggressive, and built purely for speed. It demanded courage and precision. In 1931, Bayles piloted it to victory at the prestigious Thompson Trophy race, earning national recognition and proving he could handle one of the most challenging planes ever built. But winning was not enough. On December 5, 1931, in Detroit, Bayles prepared to set a new land plane speed record. The engine roared as he pushed the GB faster across the sky. Spectators watched in awe as the aircraft climbed with incredible power. Then, without warning, the plane pitched sharply upward. Under the extreme stress, the right wing failed and control was lost in an instant. The aircraft descended rapidly and struck the ground near a railroad track. Bayles did not survive the attempt. His passing stunned the aviation world. He had chased speed with fearless determination, becoming a symbol of an era when pilots pushed technology to its limits. Lowell Bayles sought to write his name into history through velocity, but his final flight became a sobering reminder of how narrow the margin can be between triumph and tragedy. Number 7. Javad Palizbanian. On August 27, 2005, inside Tehran's packed Azadi Stadium, anticipation hung thick in the air. Hundreds of spectators filled the stands, waiting to witness what was promoted as a historic motorcycle stunt. At the center of the arena stood Javad Palizbanian, a 44-year-old rider known for daring jumps that tested both physics and fear. That day, he aimed to leap over 22 buses lined up side by side, a feat no one had ever completed. Javad was no stranger to risk. Just weeks earlier, he had successfully cleared a wide river, earning admiration and headlines. Years of practice had sharpened his timing and control. As he revved the engine, the roar echoed through the stadium. The motorcycle surged forward, gaining speed before launching off the ramp. For a breathtaking moment, he was airborne, soaring above the first several buses with confidence. But as he continued across the row, the trajectory began to shift. The front wheel dipped slightly, just enough to alter the arc of the jump. In seconds, the motorcycle made contact with one of the buses. The impact ended the attempt abruptly. The live broadcast cut away, and the stadium fell into stunned silence as emergency crews rushed in. Javad Palizbanian did not survive the accident. What was meant to be a triumphant record became a heartbreaking reminder of how unforgiving extreme precision can be. He had hoped to bring pride and recognition through his daring skill. Instead, his final jump became a cautionary tale about the razor-thin line between extraordinary achievement and irreversible loss. Number 8. Janaka Basnayake. In the quiet town of Kahawata, Sri Lanka, 24-year-old Janaka Basnayake was known for testing the limits of human endurance. While others chased fame through talent or competition, Janaka sought recognition through extreme physical challenges. From a young age, he had been fascinated by daring feats, gradually pushing himself further each time. He had already buried himself underground twice before and emerged safely, gaining local attention and confidence with each attempt. But on March 3, 2012, he decided to attempt something even more ambitious. A 10-foot-deep trench was prepared, and friends and family gathered as he climbed inside. Wooden boards were placed above him, and soil was carefully packed on top. The goal was simple, yet dangerous. Remain buried long enough to set a new world record. As hours passed, anticipation turned into unease. This attempt was deeper and longer than any he had tried before. When the agreed time ended, those above began digging him out with urgency. The earth was removed quickly, boards pulled aside, and Janaka was lifted from the trench. But something was wrong. He was unresponsive. He was rushed to the nearest hospital as panic spread among the crowd who had once cheered his determination. Despite efforts to save him, Janaka Basnayake did not survive. The exact cause remained uncertain, but the outcome was undeniable. His pursuit of pushing beyond human limits had gone too far. What began as a quest for a record ended as a somber reminder that the body can only endure so much, no matter how strong the will behind it. Number 9. Garman. For Garman, the ocean was not something to fear. It was something to conquer. Known among fellow divers as Doc Deep, the ear, nose, and throat specialist from the U.S. Virgin Islands, had spent years preparing for one extraordinary goal, breaking the world record for the deepest open water dive. The number he had in mind was staggering 1,200 feet beneath the surface, a depth few humans had ever reached. Garman was meticulous in his preparation. He installed a 1,300-foot dive line anchored to the ocean floor and assembled hundreds of pounds of specialized equipment. Months before his final attempt, he successfully descended to 815 feet alone, proving to himself that the record was within reach. On August 15, 2015, he entered the water at Long Reef calm and focused. His son accompanied him for the early portion of the descent, before watching his father continue downward into the dark blue alone. The plan required precision. After reaching his target depth, Garman would begin a long, carefully staged ascent, meeting support divers at 350 feet to begin hours of decompression stops. But as the minutes passed, he did not arrive at the designated depth on schedule. The support team waited, scanning the water for signs of his return. None came. Days later, after an extensive search, Garman was found. He did not survive the attempt. The exact sequence of events remains uncertain, hidden in the depths he sought to master. His story left the diving community reflecting on the immense risks of extreme exploration. The ocean, vast and silent, offers no guarantees, and even the most determined among us can be humbled by its power. Number 10. Juan Francisco Villa Honorato. For nearly 5 years, Juan Francisco lived on 2 wheels. The 47-year-old Chilean cyclist began his journey in 2010 with an ambitious dream ride, 250,000 kilometers across 5 continents in 5 years, and earn a place in the record books. What started as a personal challenge became a global odyssey. He pedaled through deserts, mountains, crowded cities, and remote villages, crossing 49 countries with relentless determination. His bicycle became more than transportation. It was his companion through scorching heat, freezing winds, and monsoon rains. Along parts of the journey, his wife and young son rode beside him, turning the mission into a family adventure that inspired people along the way. With every mile completed, the finish line drew closer. By early 2015, he was nearing the final stretch of his goal. The record seemed within reach. On February 21, 2015, while cycling along a highway in northeastern Thailand, everything changed. A pickup truck traveling at high speed lost control and veered into his path. The collision ended the journey instantly. His wife and child survived with minor injuries, but Juan Francisco did not. The news stunned those who had followed his remarkable expedition. Years of endurance, sacrifice, and passion were cut short just months before completion. His story stands as both inspiration and warning. He proved what the human spirit can endure. Yet his final chapter reminds us that even the strongest journeys can be altered by a single, unforeseen moment. Number 11. Audrey Mestre. On October 12, 2002, the calm blue waters near Bayahibe Beach in the Dominican Republic became the setting for one of the most talked about moments in free diving history. Audrey Mestre, already a world record holder and one of the most respected athletes in the sport, was preparing to descend deeper than any woman had gone before in the no limits category. The diving world watched with anticipation. She was not chasing fame. She was chasing precision mastery and a new milestone beneath the surface. Born in France and raised with a deep love for the ocean, Audrey had been swimming since infancy. After studying marine biology in Mexico, she dedicated herself fully to free diving. Under the mentorship of renowned diver Pipin Ferreras, she refined her technique and composure. By 1999 and 2000, she had already set and broken world records. Calm, disciplined, and methodical, she became known for her control in one of the most extreme disciplines in the sport. In October 2002, determined to surpass the existing 160-meter record, Audrey planned a 171-meter dive. Using a weighted sled, she descended rapidly into crushing pressure, where lungs compress dramatically and heart rate slows. At depth, she was supposed to inflate a lift bag using compressed air to power her return, but the tank did not provide the expected buoyancy. Her ascent slowed, complicated by currents and equipment challenges. The dive extended far beyond its planned duration. When she reached the surface, precious time had passed. Despite rescue efforts, Audrey Mestre did not survive. Her passing sent shockwaves through the diving community and sparked serious discussions about safety protocols and oversight in extreme depth attempts. Today, she is remembered not only as a record breaker, but as a symbol of dedication and the sobering reality that even the most skilled athletes face immense risks when pushing the boundaries of human endurance. Number 12, Chris Raschke. Under the blazing sun of the Bonneville Salt Flats, Speed Week is more than an event. It is a ritual. Every year, engineers and drivers gather on the endless white surface to chase numbers that once seemed impossible. On August 3, 2025, Chris Raschke was once again part of that tradition. At 60 years old, he was not a reckless newcomer. He was a seasoned professional, a respected member of the Speed Demon racing team, and someone who understood that at extreme speeds, preparation is everything. For more than a decade, Chris had worked closely with the team, helping refine machines built for one purpose only: velocity. Away from the salt, he served as director of sales and marketing for ARPA Company, whose components power some of the world's top motorsports teams. In racing circles, he was known for his steady mindset, technical knowledge, and quiet confidence. Bonneville was where his passion truly came alive. That afternoon, he climbed into the Speed Demon 3 Streamliner, a vehicle engineered to challenge records in the piston-driven class. The run began smoothly. The machine accelerated across the salt stable and precise. By the 2.5-mile mark, Chris was traveling at nearly 280 miles per hour. Then, in a split second, something changed. The vehicle veered unexpectedly, and the controlled run turned into a violent incident. Emergency crews responded immediately and worked tirelessly at the scene. Despite their efforts, Chris Raschke did not survive. The racing community was left stunned. Speed Week continued in the days that followed, but the atmosphere had shifted. Chris was remembered not only as a driver chasing records, but as a mentor, a teammate, and a man who respected the risks he faced. His story stands as a powerful reminder that even with experience and preparation, the pursuit of extreme speed carries consequences that can alter everything in an instant. Number 13, John Rhodes Cobb. Long before modern safety systems and advanced engineering, there was John Rhodes Cobb, a man the press once called the fastest man alive. Born in 1899 in England, Cobb built his reputation in the golden era of motor racing, breaking lap records and eventually setting multiple world land speed records at the Bonneville Salt Flats. By 1947, he had reached an astonishing 394 miles per hour, briefly touching over 400 during one run. His name became synonymous with fearless precision and calculated ambition. But land was no longer enough. In the early 1950s, Cobb turned his attention to water speed. Determined to reclaim the world water speed record for Britain, he commissioned a jet-powered boat named Crusader. Built in just months, the craft was sleek, lightweight, and designed for one purpose: to surpass the existing mark. In September 1952, he arrived at Loch Ness in Scotland, where thousands gathered to witness history. After several test runs challenged by wind and water conditions, September 29th was declared ideal. Cobb accelerated along the measured mile, pushing Crusader beyond 200 miles per hour, well above the standing record. For a moment, it seemed certain he had succeeded. Then the boat began to oscillate violently. The instability escalated within seconds. Crusader lost control and broke apart on the water's surface. Rescue teams reached him quickly, but John Cobb did not survive. Investigations later pointed to aerodynamic instability as the likely cause. His passing marked the end of one of Britain's greatest speed pioneers. Cobb had conquered land and nearly mastered water, always driven by the belief that limits were meant to be challenged. Yet his final attempt became a lasting reminder that at extreme speeds, even the smallest imbalance can change everything. Number 14, Nicholas Mevoli. Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas is one of the most breathtaking places on Earth. Its deep sapphire center drops more than 200 meters straight down, drawing the world's best free divers to test their limits in near silence. On November 17, 2013, American diver Nicholas Mevoli entered those waters with one goal: set a new U.S. record in the constant, no fins category, one of the most physically demanding disciplines in the sport. Nick was not a reckless thrill-seeker. Born in Florida and raised near the ocean, he had grown up diving and spearfishing in the Florida Keys. Though he worked professionally in television production in New York, his heart belonged to the sea. In just a short time, he had risen rapidly in competitive free diving, earning national records and international podium finishes. Friends described him as focused, humble, and deeply respectful of the water's power. That day, he descended to 72 meters on a single breath, relying only on his strength and technique to pull himself down and back up without fins. The dive itself appeared controlled, but shortly after reaching the surface, Nick showed signs of distress. Safety teams responded immediately and provided emergency care on site before transporting him to a medical center. Despite sustained efforts to revive him, Nicholas Mevoli did not survive. The competition was canceled, and the free diving community was left in shock. His passing highlighted the immense physiological strain the sport places on the body, even for elite athletes. Nick is remembered not only for his achievements beneath the surface, but for his kindness, generosity, and unwavering passion for the ocean he loved so deeply.